Writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions. 540-0580. What do you guys want to talk about? Call in and we will talk about it. If you have a legal concern, legal question, we'll get it here on the air. Of course, I have some emails I'm probably going to pick up on and talk about today as well. We're going to touch on Pennsylvania's revised Megan's Law. Some of you may have gotten letters in the mail from the state police, so we'll be happy to talk about those as well, and we're going to get in depth about that maybe, although quite frankly I don't know a lot about it yet. Knew it was coming, just not sure exactly how it's all going to play out. And that just reminds me, generally in the law, remember, there's answers and there's easy answers, and a lot of times there's no direct answer. And sometimes I frustrate clients because they come to me and say, well, what's the law on this point? And I say it's uncertain, it's unclear, or there's no direct regulation. You know, my favorite is when somebody says, is there a law against that? And I say, well, there's a lot of laws that affect that. I'm not sure if there's a law directly against it or not. 540-0580, Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. Jim, you're on the air.
Hi, Carl. I had some rotor cuff surgery on my shoulder.
Okay.
And a torn bicep. The bicep they couldn't repair. The rotor cuff, I was a smidgen away from a complete shoulder replacement. I have 4 titanium anchors and 4 nylon sutures that are permanently there. So anyhow, when I had this surgery done, I applied for workman's compensation, and I was denied. So at that point, I weighed the cost of an attorney or going to my own work insurance. So I went with my own work insurance because the only thing that I would have to pay there is the $2,500 out of pocket.
Okay.
So I had the surgery done, and my insurance company, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield Horizon, Blue Cross Blue Shield from New Jersey. It's not Highmark, it's Horizon. They started to pay for some of the things. You know, the bills come along slowly from the hospital.
Right.
And then I went to physical therapy, which I'm still going to now, and they started to pay. They were paying the physical therapy. And then right in the middle of everything, they want to change horses in the middle of the stream. And now they're saying I started getting some statements back from them saying that it's not paid and it's a patient responsibility, 100% my responsibility. And then they sent me a letter saying they're not paying it. They want workman's comp to pay it. So they had a phone number there, and I called them and I said, hey, workman's comp denied me. I have a denial form here, and I think I even sent it to them. Mm-hmm. And they says, well, we're telling you that it's workman's comp related, and we're not paying for it. So I have a bill here. I mean, they paid most. I don't know how much the total surgery was. And I had it done at the Good Samaritan Hospital, and they did a terrific job. Terrific people down there. And I have a bill of about $40,000 plus my physical therapy.
Right.
It's a couple hundred, maybe about $400 or $500 there. I still owe them, and I still want to go there. So what do I do? I mean, workman's comp's not going to pay it, and my
why is workers' comp not going to pay it?
Well, they
denied it, right?
They denied.
Wait. Let me ask you a question. I'm just going to have a little fun for 1 second.
Yeah, ask me any
at your
question you
expense. At your expense, I'm going to have a little fun. Yeah. Now, 2 insurance companies have denied the claim, right?
Yes, and that's all I got.
Well, but one insurance company saying the other one should pay, and the other insurance company basically saying, no, this isn't workers' comp, so your health insurance should pay, right?
Exactly.
So why do you believe that the workers' comp people are right and the other people are wrong?
Well, I'm not saying who's right or
that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. So
I'm not sure myself, but I had to go somewhere when workman's comp denied me.
But you didn't. What you didn't do was litigate with workers' comp.
Well,
and
you mean not get an attorney?
Right. Now, I don't know if you understand this or not, but workers' comp attorneys take a percentage of what they collect.
Right. Now, listen, Carl. I did ask an attorney.
Okay.
I did, because there's so many out there for this workman's comp stuff.
All right.
And to keep in mind, I worked for this company for 40 years.
I understand, and I'm just giving you a little hard time.
It's a major utility too. And I've got out of bed so many times, 2, 3 in the morning, in the middle of January, and I've got a big chunk of my paycheck taken out for my insurance too. We got to pay for a a part of our own insurance. Okay, I got off track. What was the question here? Oh yeah,
I think you're about to tell me you didn't go after you talked to an attorney about workers' comp.
And he said 20%. I said, my gosh, 20%. I said it's going to be cheaper for me to pay the $2,500 out-of-pocket expense.
Now I understand. I got exactly what you were thinking about. Now, quite interestingly, however, if I remember right, I think the medical provider has to accept it subject to the attorney's lien. So I don't think that 20% on the medical bills comes out of your pocket. So here's what I want to do. If I put you on hold for a minute, I want to give you the name of a guy I want you to call.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the name of, and anybody who calls me, I'll refer him to a workers' comp attorney that I really like, who does really good work. So let me put you on hold.
Okay. You want me to go the route of workman's comp? I mean, I already paid the $2,500 out of my pocket. I want.
Well, wait. Listen. Workers' comp. Wait. Slow down. Workers' comp would have to pay all the medical bills. That means they would also have to repay somebody's deductible, which would be your deductible.
Yeah, well, this surgery went back. This was back in August. I had this surgery.
You got 3 years. You got 3 years from the date of the injury.
It's going to be a lot to sort out. Just be easier if Blue Cross Blue Shield was just
Well, but then you're going to have to pay a lawyer to litigate with them.
All right. Hey, my question is, before you put me on hold,
yeah.
Do you think this Blue Cross Blue Shield out of New Jersey is just playing with me to see what I'm going to do?
No, I think that
everybody, once workman comp denies it, that the insurance company has to pay it.
No, I don't think so. Because, and here's why. In almost every other state besides Pennsylvania, they would have the right to pursue your workers' compensation carrier themselves for subrogation. In this state, they can't.
Okay.
You have the duty to go after workers' comp. And so my suggestion is you're going to discover is they're going to say, since you control the right of subrogation in this instance.
Okay.
So here's my point. I really want you to talk to this fella.
Okay.
Because I suspect he'll be able to make you whole at almost no cost to you.
Well, boy, that'd be great.
That's what my suspicion is. Now, the other thing...
and I'll get my $2,500 back from...
Well, that's what I mean, yeah, because that would have been paid by workers' comp because there's no deductible on workers' comp. So you'll get your $2,500 back. He might take 20% of it now. Right?
Well, I thought you were going to make me whole.
Well, but he's going to take 20% of what he collects, and if he'd gone with him in the first instance, you're right, you wouldn't have been out $2,500.
Okay, I got you.
So... But my point is, you'll be able to collect your deductible back as part of your medical expenses. So hold till 15 after, and then I'm going to come back on the phone with you off the air.
Okay.
All right?
I'm patient. Go ahead.
All right, hold on, brother. 540-0580. Jeff, you're on the air. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, how you doing today, Carl?
Good.
Good. Hey, quick question. I know I have about 3 minutes here, but I work for a company out of California. Basically, I'm a sales representative, and I've been on a commission plan for the last 2 or 3 years, and pretty much every year it's very similar. Signed a contract or an agreement with them in March of this year, and the commission plan, was going along fine. I had a great month of October where I blew my numbers away. The company, try to keep it quick, expects, 40-60% margin on products. That's what they were used to years ago in the photo industry. Mm-hmm. Those margins have been squeezed because of the wet process to the dry digital. And in this particular case, on the commission plan, the margin dropped to 17%. Okay? And to give you an idea, I get paid 9.3% of a certain goal. Whatever I go over it, I get paid the 9.3. Well, I got a call on Thursday of last week. Payroll was on Friday where it gets deposited into my account. Being West Coast, they called me about 5 o'clock Eastern time and said we had a little problem here. We're basically paying you a commission and we're breaking even on product, which isn't entirely true. And I told them I was willing. I'm not out to take advantage of the company.
Right.
But I feel you sign an agreement. If I have a bad year, guess what? I don't get paid commissions. If I have a good year, make it whole. And so anyways, I got a FedEx Friday morning last week envelope with the commission plan. Basically, I was supposed to get around 14 to 15,000, somewhere in that area, and they gave me 4,100 gross. So I went back, and the problem is it's a small company, about 55 employees. So I went back to the CFO and asked for, basically an explanation of how he derived at this number. And, he just kind of told me we paid you 2% instead of 9.3, take it or leave it. I have not cashed the commission check yet. You know how it is in this, day and age, trying to keep a job can be challenging. And how much do I go against it? Or, do I just say, hey, be happy I got the 4,100 and walk away? Or
And are you still employed by this person?
Oh, yes. That's kind of my fear, though. If I fight it too hard,
yeah, if you fight it too hard.
Unemployed.
Now, and you may be able to get under the Wage Act, and they may owe you this money. I'm not completely certain as to how that would play out, but you at least have a colorable claim. So then it gets to be a question of, do you want to be there long term or not, or is this a sufficient? So I guess you're going to have to make a business decision yourself, which is this enough money to keep me interested?
Right. Okay.
And if it is, then I guess you let it lay, but maybe you just make it very clear that, hey, guys, you promised me one thing, you gave me another. I'll live with this for the moment, but down the road we can't keep modifying things.
Exactly.
Because as a lot of little European countries discovered, appeasing the dictator just results in more invasions.
Exactly.
On the other hand, because of the job market, it's not like it was in 2006 where you could just jump anywhere you wanted before.
Exactly. Yep, and it's the photo industry. It's not.
So that's my rub. You have a colorable claim, and you certainly could try to enforce it.
So do I just keep documentation?
Yes.
Of
and you have 4-year statute of limitations on breach of contract. I got to go to break, but because of that 4-year statute, you got a little time to play. Maybe on the check, just write a cashed under protest.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right,
my
friend.
Have a great holiday.
All right, you too. Okay, we got to go to break. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. 540-0580. I want to remind you, Tuesday, December 11th, I will be speaking on gun laws and gun rights at the Northern York County Fish and Game. That's coming up pretty quick here, Shane. It's this Tuesday. Okay, well, this Tuesday. So I will not be at Wings on Tuesday night, nor I'll be drinking beer at 7 p.m. I will be at the Northern York County Fish and Game on 40 Bremer Road. It's open to the public, so if you've missed our gun law seminars in the past, you've got to come there. And if you can't come there, get us booked for your club, and we'll do it. We answer questions on all kinds of things. It seems to focus a lot on self-defense, and, could I shoot a guy if he broke into my house? And that's just a paraphrase of some of the questions. But actually, the questions get much better than that. And the last one we had at the Harrisburg Hunters and Anglers, and, of course, I did the redneck voice, right? But that's actually a parody, because the reality is the licensed gun owners and the sportsmen are actually, on average, a little bit sharper, and there's statistical proof. If you're an NRA member, for instance, you're more likely to be college educated. If you're an NRA member, you make a little bit more per year, blah, 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 blah. Point being is the better element of society seems to own the guns legally. So as a result, you get these really thoughtful questions, and I get put on the spot, and I enjoy that. But I do get some let's talk about that, because there's no simple answer. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. And it's kind of a speech, but it's not really. It's a group participation, so we work things out. Saturday, December 15th, which is next Saturday, David Goldman, the gun trust lawyer, will be on here to talk about gun trust. So mark that down from 2 to 3 p.m. next week. Saturday, January 19th, from 2 to 3, we'll have David Goss of Northern American Forensic Accounting to talk about forensic accounting in criminal and civil matters. And on February 2nd, 2 to 3 p.m., Glenn Yoder from Caldwell Bank Select Professionals will be on to discuss property management and landlord-tenant issues. So mark your calendars down, guys. We have all this stuff up on RomingerLaw.com, as well as my Garden Talk spot that I was on a while ago. So if you want to learn about trees and valuation of landscape and neighbors' trees and law, and it was a very interesting session that we had. That aired on another radio station. However, the podcasts of it are up at RomingerLaw.com. And, of course, you can find us there. If you need to get hold of us at the office, it's 717-241-6070, 717-241-6070. Of course, today the talk line number is 540-0580. Bob, you're on the air.
Hello, Carl.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. I'm glad to talk to you. The situation I wanted to ask you about goes like this, and I learned this through another individual. A teacher at a higher level of education had a problem with a student in his class who was underperforming. The student, they learned later on, was underperforming in other classes, but the situation with this particular teacher and this particular student, became more problematic as parents got involved and so on. The real problem that happened was that the student, unknown to the teacher, set up I guess you would call it a dummy Facebook account.
Okay.
Or a location, as if he were the teacher. and on that site, made all kinds of disparaging remarks about other individuals, cursing, swearing, using phrases that would be expletive deleted, and all kinds of comments that were totally uncharacteristic that a teacher or responsible adult would make.
Right.
The teacher was called into, I guess, the supervisor's office one morning and asked about this, and that's the first time he learned about it. And it's caused, a lot of grief and concern in that family and extended family. And, he, like some of us, might be concerned about, his job security and all of those things, and because of the relationship that he had with his student.
Mm-hmm.
My question basically is where does accountability or liability or cause for concern start with somebody who does something like that, who in this case would be a minor, but has apparently no sense of responsibility or conscience?
So I'm trying to figure. There's still the question. You want to know what can be done to this person?
Well, I mean, the teacher involved is concerned about his job, but
if he can show it wasn't him, I don't see how it affects his job, right?
Right, but with the Facebook being so widespread and wide, in use so widely on the internet, concerned about his reputation as these words or expressions or the treatment that he's received might spread among the community.
Right. Well, I don't know the answer to that. What I mean by that is, you can sue the person who did it, right, for defamation. You can sue them for kind of an identity theft type theory, invasion of privacy, those sorts of things. Get monetary damages. The person could be subject to juvenile. This person's underage, right?
Yeah.
They'd be subject to juvenile sanctions. But what he could do is get a court order to have Facebook completely destroy the artificial account.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And once that's destroyed, it just removed from Facebook entirely. Nobody's going to be able to read those things or see those things, and maybe get, if he needs a letter. A lot of times we've done this by way of explanation. So I read a letter. The client says, you've written me with your concerns that somebody would think you did these things. Notice that by this action, Facebook's removed it because it was determined that this was not done by you and you had no hand in it, et cetera, et cetera. You have concerns that people may think still remember this or whatever. And, the best I can tell you is you're going to have to show them, that this was removed. But the point of the letter is it's a letter they can show somebody that doesn't contain any personally sensitive information, but basically explains how we got to where we're at and why it really wasn't us. And usually that's sufficient with third parties. But you're right. At some point, all this information is going to be, is it possible it's going to be on some mirrored site somewhere? Is it possible it could crop up someday? Somebody would say they saw it. Maybe.
Sure.
But I also think that, what do I want to say? I'm going to think about the right way to say this. The effect on reputation, because information is so easily disseminated these days, and so inaccurately disseminated these days.
Right.
The 89-year-old people in our society, and no offense to my 89-plus listeners, still remember an age when if you read it in the newspaper, they thought it was true. Even though they didn't really think it was true. Nowadays, if you read it on the internet, you sort of have to start from the proposition that it might be Wikipedia, but it might still be wrong. And so I think we're going to see as time evolves that all these crazy, everybody's going to have something crazy about them on the internet. Just Google my name and read what comes up these days.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
And my point being is at some point that's not going to be as nearly as damning as people think it would be based on how things used to be. I think.
Sure.
I think we're getting to that point.
All right. Well, it's so prevalent everywhere. So everybody now has a platform that they can speak to the world if they'd like to.
And that's my point. And at a certain point when, it's once everybody has the megaphone, then nobody has the megaphone.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, my friend.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. 540-0580. Tom, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Carl. Nice talking to you again.
Nice to hear from you.
My pleasure, always. I have a liability issue. Approximately a month ago, I purchased a half gallon of ice cream at a chain supermarket. And in eating that ice cream, which I did not understand, looking at the box, because it looked quite a bit like another company, an area company's ice cream, in terms of the picture. I did not realize that this chocolate peanut butter cup was loaded with big pieces of chocolate.
Okay.
As opposed to the other company I normally buy the brand from. So,
and they're frozen, so they're hard. I know where we're going with this.
Yeah, I bet you do. It broke off a tooth.
Right.
Okay. And I tried to talk to someone in the home office of the ice cream company, and also I alerted the chain that I purchased it from in terms of what happened, and I've not heard anything since. Even sent out a letter to both of them acknowledging the conversation that we had. And the only thing I got from the home office was when I called in and explained it, the woman said, "Oh, good. There's no liability on our part." and I'm just...
Tom, I want you to hold. I'm going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about food products liability, okay?
Very good.
I happen to have litigated one of these cases years ago, so I have a little bit of information. Hold on. 540-0580, Carl Rominger answering your question. When we get back, we're going to talk about chocolate chunky ice cream. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. What's in the news? Well, the United States Supreme Court has agreed to take up two major same-sex marriage cases. The one is out of California, and it deals with, if you remember, California banned same-sex marriage by a referendum. So they had started to allow it and then banned it by referendum. The Supreme Court of California, I think, did an advisory opinion at some point in it, but nonetheless a federal court struck it down, a federal judge struck it down, saying that once you give somebody a right, you can't take it away. And so there's constitutional law to this effect, which is once you've extended a right, you can't draw it back. And some people may say, well, you know, I don't disagree with that, but it's a good policy. It basically says we don't give rights and then pull them back. So once we gave a right to same-sex marriage in California, the people of California lost the right to ban it in their own constitution. The United States Supreme Court is going to take that case up. They're also taking up another one involving the Defense of Marriage Act and its effect on federal benefits and federal law, because the Defense of Marriage Act applies to states, but it also applies to federal law. They're major cases. And if you'll remember, and I always like to point this out because, you know, with the WHP 580 listeners who range all the way from libertarians, and if you're a libertarian, you should really care less about same-sex marriage and really not have a problem with it. And if you're a conservative Republican type, then you're probably going to be all torqued off about this. And if you're some of our wacky liberal left-wing listeners, you're going to be completely, you know, clapping your hands as well, happy. But nonetheless, the two lawyers for the Proposition 8 opposition were David Boies, who's a well-known lawyer who represented Mr. Gore in the Gore v. Bush action. There's a great biography of him, which I strongly recommend people read, whether you like him or not. The government actually had him represent the government against Microsoft. He's the Olympic athlete of lawyers. There's no doubt in my mind. Total genius. Was joined by Ted Olson, who was the Solicitor General for George Bush, if you'll remember, whose wife was killed in the 9/11 attacks, and who's a dyed-in-the-wool right-winger, but more of a libertarian. And the two of them went together and got it overturned. So it's going to be an epic battle because you've really got two of the best Supreme Court lawyers in the history of the Republic. And maybe that's a bold statement, but they're both up in the upper echelons. And they're both on that side. So I'll be very curious to see what the opposition has to say. But both David Boies and Ted Olson are well known to the Supreme Court and well liked based on their past appearances there. keeping in mind, as the Solicitor General of the United States, Olson regularly argued on behalf of the United States in front of the court, so he knows that court very well. And as you know, the judges roll over so slowly. Even if you practice there for 20 years, you're in front of the same bench half the time. 540-0580. I promised Tom we would talk about chocolate chunk ice cream. Now, Tom, I'm going to summarize for the people who are just joining us. You bought a bowl of ice cream. You thought it was like the other chocolate peanut butter ice cream you were familiar with, which did not have large chunks of chocolate in it.
Correct.
This other brand has large chunks of chocolate, and all of us who've experienced eating frozen chocolate know it becomes extremely hard and unforgiving, and upon biting down on the ice cream, you hit a hard lump of frozen chocolate, at which time your tooth broke.
Correct.
You then called the company, and they basically laughed at you and said, "Oh, thank goodness we have no liability," when you told them what happened.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to go all the way back to law school here. Years ago, I sued, well, not all the way back to law school. We'll stop halfway for a moment. Years ago, I sued a food manufacturer, a very major food manufacturer, because when you go to the grocery store, all the different names on the bottle really don't mean much. They're all made by the same three people, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, when I sued them, their lawyers explained to me they don't settle cases because, why, if they started settling food liability cases, imagine how many settlements there would be. So they want all the lawyers of the world to know one thing, which is food liability products cases are going to be fought very, very aggressively. And I'll go back a little bit before that, and I had another guy tell me he found a fly inside of his cheese dip when he opened it, and that upon realizing that there was a fly in there and becoming disgusted, he tripped and fell and hurt himself as he was walking and eating with his cheese dip, Correct. And the cheese dip people informed me that's impossible because the cheese dip is filled into the containers at 600 degrees, and a fly couldn't even remain intact if it landed on it, which actually turned out to be scientifically true. So the fly must have gotten in after he opened it. Probably landed there, within seconds of him opening. Who knows? But my point is, they're very aggressive in their defense. They'll gladly lab test everything. But here's the bigger general rule you're running up against. And now I'm going all the way back to law school. A woman in California is eating a burrito, and she gets a chicken bone. And she wants to sue because there's a chicken bone in her burrito. And the court says, no, you really can't sue because a chicken bone is a naturally occurring part of the chicken that could always be left behind, just like pits in the cherries or something along those lines. And so we're just not going to allow you to sue every time a fragment of some kind of food, something that's normal or natural to the food, ends up in the end product, okay?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you find a piece of metal shaving in your burrito, that's a different story, and the food company is going to be responsible because it's negligence to let the metal get in there. Now, the exception to that rule you might be able to make is an argument that, well, it's not just a chicken bone, but, they had problems with this whole line, and they knew that chicken bones were ending up at an unacceptable percentage, and they weren't testing them, and maybe you work your way in like that. But why she exclaimed, we have no liability, she's saying, aha, we have the natural state of the food defense. It's all natural ingredients. It's chocolate, it's peanut butter, it's ice cream, it's frozen, and you broke your tooth on it, but it is as it should be, so we're not negligent. And I guess you would say, well, they should have warned me that these chocolate chunks were large, and they would say, well, you should have known that everybody's ice cream is a little different. So what more importantly they're going to say is, we don't have any liability because the judge is going to toss it on the theory that your only complaint is that the chocolate was chocolate and frozen and too big. But nonetheless, just because ice cream's naturally frozen and the size of the chocolate varies from product to product. In fact, some people would be disappointed to discover there were no chocolate chunks in their ice cream. So that's why and I hate to tell you that's why they're kind of mocking you, which is not cool, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not condoning that. But I'm suggesting that they certainly know what I know, which is that if a food product injures you, but it's in its natural state, whatever that is. I mean, now read the back of the product, and it's like carrageen gum and blah, 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 and, sodium lauryl sulfate. That's soap, actually. But my point being is it's not actually going to be, purely natural. And that, by the way, is why McDonald's, when they were sued years ago, got the case thrown out, but the judge said that they could amend the complaint because chicken nuggets were sold as natural or generally healthier products. But that chicken nuggets were actually made from 17 separate ingredients that had been recombined in a way that actually made them less healthy than the beef, and that the plaintiff may be able to pursue a claim to say that they were misled into believing that chicken nuggets were healthier alternative to feed their kids than hamburgers, because it was pitched as, chicken healthy alternative when it really wasn't chicken, it was a McNugget. But that was the artificial creation that allowed them to get some liability on the food. The rest of it got thrown out because food's food. So that's my best answer for you.
Well, I'm going to bring out the other product. The other one that I eat all the time is Turkey Hill's chocolate peanut butter.
Uh-huh.
Okay? And there's no hard pieces of chocolate peanut butter in the container.
Right.
None.
Right.
Okay? The picture on the outside showed me a very smooth, swirly type peanut butter on the outside. It didn't show any chocolate pieces at all. So I assumed it was just like the Turkey Hill.
Okay, now you're thinking like a lawyer. I like it. Because here's here's why I say this. Okay, you don't like the answer, you got to change the question. Remember that this is all lawyers do. We answer questions, and if you don't like the answer, you change the question. Okay, right. That's all what lawyering's about. Right. So at its essential bare minimum, that's all it really is. So let's do this. Okay, what you're now saying is, I'm not concerned. I'm not mad that there was a chunk of chocolate in there so much as I'm mad that I was led to believe that there was no chunk of chocolate in there. Because had I had a picture that showed a big chunk of chocolate hanging out of the ice cream, I would have gone,
absolutely.
Okay, I got to be a little careful when I eat this. Or whole nuts, for instance. You might go whole pecans or something. Oh, or whole almonds even. Those are really hard sometimes, particularly when they're frozen. So now you're changing the question. So you're going to say not that the food injured you. I'm not saying that the food injured me. I'm saying that the combination of misleading advertising and labeling led me to believe that I could do this, and it was foreseeable that a person seeing the advert, to borrow from the Brits, would simply bite into the ice cream.
Right.
Got it. Interesting. Well, we could try.
Well, I have the container, and I have hundreds of pieces of frozen chocolate in the freezer.
Don't lose it. Hold on to it.
Right. Does it sound like something your firm would like to pursue?
Well, it doesn't sound like your damages are astronomical, but if you want to have a little fun with it, I mean, I'd be interested in just seeing if we could ferret out that claim.
Okay.
And I'll tell you now, and of course, some of the listeners are going to go, well, these guys are crazy. Rominger's crazy, and this caller's crazy. Mm-hmm. So years ago, I had a guy that fell at the fast food store, right? And he fell on some grease on the ground. And the answer from the fast food store was, well, he should have watched where he was walking. We can't help it that some other customer spilled some grease out on the floor. And, of course, you want to be, well, how greasy is your chicken that somebody can spill some grease out on the floor? But that's a whole other story. And I meant like on the parking lot, I should say.
Well, these listeners out there, each and every one of them could have lost a tooth.
Well, right.
Just like I did. So if they think I'm crazy, let them buy this particular ice cream.
Well, wait, listen, I'll go on with I know now, so they'll be okay. But I'll go one step further. So I do a little research, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I know why my guy wasn't looking at the ground. He was busy reading the giant panels that you guys have in the windows advertising the meals he's supposed to be thinking about as he walks in the door.
Right.
And there's actually case law on that where it's been said, because here's what happens. People go, how's that possible? Well, the fast food people, they do studies, and they've designed these advertisements to catch your eye and to make you read them and to be interesting. And they're placed in ways where they can be seen. So the point was they were able to show in that case that the fast food restaurant had done studies to make the ads as eye-catching as possible and had placed them in spots where they knew people would see them. So the idea was when you place your adverts in a way that causes me to read them as I walk into your restaurant, you're distracting me from paying attention to your parking lot. So you better be a little more careful with your parking lot than normal. Interesting. So
well,
I don't think you're crazy.
The company, the chain that sold it to me, that starts with an A,
don't say the name.
Very simply told me they took it out of the warehouse immediately after I related the situation to them. But I found out 2 weeks later they brought it back and they had it in the freezer.
Huh.
Okay.
All right. Well, you can call me off the air. I got to go because Shane's screaming at me about going to break.
All right. Okay.
All right, man.
And I'll give you a call, and we'll go from there.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Carl.
540-0580. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580, answering your legal questions. Of course, if you don't know me, I'm a lawyer. I practice here in the mid-state. We do a general practice. We've got, and maybe I should clarify, I did have somebody the other day call and go, well, you know, you guys have room in your practice for me? Maybe you're too busy. We've got 4 lawyers, and we can accommodate you. So don't not call us because you think we're too busy. I will admit to being busy, but I'm never too busy. Well, it's possible. I could someday become too busy. 540-0580. On December 11th, I will be speaking at the Northern York County Fish and Game Club. It begins at 7 p.m. It's open to the public, free. It's at 40 Bremer Road, New York, PA. You can look this up at romingerlaw.com for more specifics, but I'll be there. I'm going to have some handouts. I'm going to talk about gun laws and gun rights. It's going to be an open discussion with the group, and you'll really enjoy it. And then on December 15th, 2 p.m., I've got David Goldman of the Gun Trust Lawyer on to talk about gun trusts and gun laws. On the 19th at 2 p.m., I've got David Goss with Northern American Forensic Accounting coming on, and on February 2nd, I've got Glenn Yoder from Caldwell Bank Select Professionals coming on to discuss property management, landlord-tenant issues. If you're one of those guys who owns a rental property or does or wants to own a rental property, or you're a young couple thinking about buying a second house and maybe renting out your first house, this is going to be the guy you want to talk to about some practical things. We're going to talk about landlord-tenant issues. We're going to talk about property management, which is using a real estate company or a property management company to help you manage your tenants. Now, I'll give you an example. I'm just thinking ahead here. One of the most common things I see is young people come in, they've got their first rental, they're excited to be in the business. Now they've had somebody in there for 6 months, and they've only paid 2 months' rent, and they need to evict them, and they're losing all this money, but they're struggling to meet the mortgage on the second property because they don't have no income from it. And they say to me, you know, I can't believe this guy stiffed me. And I say, did you do a credit check? And they say, no. And you go, huh. Maybe if you'd done a credit check, you'd have known they were going to stiff you. And my point on that is, if you had a property management company, while you would have to pay them a percentage of every month's rent, not a huge percentage, but a percentage, you could have gotten the credit check done because they would do that in due course. And they would have gotten you a better tenant. And so instead of getting 2/6 or 1/3 of the total rent, you would have gotten 90% of the total rent. And that makes a huge swing when you're running it like a business. All right, Maria. You're on the air, Maria.
Hi, I am calling about an issue I have with my marriage.
Okay.
I was married 5 years ago at a Sandals resort in St. Lucia.
Okay.
I came back. I had the paperwork. I went to file it at the courthouse, and they said that they weren't going to accept it. So I called Sandals and asked them, you know, I just spent all this money. What do I do? And they said, just, you know, go around the courthouse, go get your Social Security card, go get your driver's license, and then you're all set. So I filed for a passport yesterday, and it's declined because now I'm not legally married in the United States. Even though I have a driver's license, Social Security card, and I bought a house,
right?
Had children, I've done all this stuff, and now I can't even go get married at a courthouse because my name now is Rierick, which is my married name. Now it doesn't match what it should say.
Right. You could probably still get married at a court. What county do you live in?
I live in Cumberland County.
Okay. I'd be happy to try to facilitate that for you. We would need to go down and talk to the Register and Recorder of Deeds and Wills, who also issues the marriage licenses.
Okay.
But if they can't do it directly, they would probably accept a petition to the court and a court order granting the ability to get married.
Okay, because that's what they did say, that I needed to contact an attorney, so that's probably what you're thinking.
What I'm thinking is, and first thing I would do is just talk with them and say, here's the other great thing that lawyers do. There's no sense reinventing the wheel, but more importantly, you want to make sure you get things right in the first instance. So usually what I do is I go to the person who issues the license or the certificate or whatever it is the client needs in the case. You know, if it's an environmental thing from the DEP, we talk to the environmental guy. If it's something, a marriage license, we talk to the Register and Recorder of Wills, and we go, why are you guys saying no? And then they explain why they're saying no. And then the next question is, well, what would cause you to say yes? And then they say, well, this is what we would need. And then I know what I need from their standpoint. Because a mistake a lawyer could make is decide that they know what the person needs. And they might even be, more right than the person.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily work because it's not what they think they need. And then you get in a whole second fiasco about, is that really what they need or don't need? So it's easier just to go to them and say, what do you need? Because once they issue the license, it's valid, right? So anyhow, yeah, I think it would be pretty straightforward. So the office number is 241-6070.
Okay, now, do you think I have this business trip in 3 weeks in the Dominican Republic? And
so we're going to need to see you. We're going to need to talk to you on Monday.
Yes.
And we're going to have to rush something through the courthouse. Now, Monday morning, I have to be in Chambersburg.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be in by Monday afternoon. So
I'll be calling Monday morning.
When you call in, let them know you talked to me on the radio show, that I said it was time sensitive. They'll know what it's about. Now, I'm picking juries down in Chambersburg, but let me explain. Like every other court function, and like every military guy I've ever known describes, it's hurry up and wait, meaning I'll probably be sitting there with my feet up on a chair doing absolutely nothing most of the morning, which means we can probably handle most of what we need to do in between, when they actually pull me into a courtroom or not. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll get that all up and running. We'll get something up there. We'll try to get a judge's signature. Probably, that's the one thing I always joke is I can move the paperwork through the courthouse really quickly. One thing I can't do is make the judge sign it in any particular haste.
Right.
But most judges are pragmatic, and if they realize, and so we need to just make sure in our advocacy portion of writing the document, in the first couple paragraphs, it's entitled emergency.
Okay.
And the joke is, when the judge sees emergency, he usually knows it's not really an emergency, but it does cause him to at least read it.
Right, exactly. And I've already paid the third party, crazy expensive fee to rush my passport.
Right.
So that's already done. So once I'm married, I should be good to go.
Got it. So maybe we can, and I know that a judge can actually waive the 3-day rule.
Okay.
I know you're not adverse to being married by a justice of the peace or a judge just for cleaning this up, right?
No, but I just don't want my child to think that I was,
Yeah, well, you can tell them the whole story. You were actually born out of wedlock, but it wasn't intentional. So
when
it
they're
really
tracing the family tree 100 years ago.
Yes, it'll be a good story for genealogy.com. All right, I got to go. We'll talk to you tomorrow or Monday.
Thank you.
All right, 540-0580. Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. Go to romingerlaw.com to learn more about us. I'll see you in a couple minutes.